the Committee of Adjustment meeting for the Township of
on your computer.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting.
Anytime.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Tom.
And welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting for the Township of Georgian Bay for Friday, March 13th. I hereby call this meeting to order at 10:01 a.m. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are working on lands traditionally occupied by the Indigenous people. Indigenous people continue to care for this land and continue to shape our township. We show our respect and will continually honor the treaties that were signed as we consider our decisions and actions. I would ask the members present, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? Okay, seeing none, I will ask that we've all had the chance to review the meetings, the minutes of our February 13th meeting, and there were some additional comments on that, and I would ask our Secretary Treasurer to speak to that matter a little bit.
Before we move the motion to adopt the minutes from February 13th, 2026 Committee of Adjustment meeting, I'd like to note that a minor amendment to the minutes respecting minor variance application A25-46, 20 Island 2060 Georgian Bay for Mullen has been requested by a member of the committee. An additional line has been added to reflect that Ms. Kara Hunter, speaking on behalf of the Cognishing Cottagers Association, raised a concern regarding the original building permit issued in approximately 2010 and suggested that it may have been issued in error. The motion before committee will therefore be adopted as amended.
Thank you very much. With that, I will read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of February 13, 2026 as amended. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the minutes are adopted. This morning, there's a public meeting scheduled for 3 minor variance applications. If you wish to be notified as to the decision of an application on the agenda this morning, please add your name to the list that's on the counter in front of us, or you can also do so online. I'll briefly summarize the procedure to be followed this morning. At first, the clerk will advise the committee as to when, how, and to whom notice of each of the hearings was circulated for the applications being considered. Next, each of the applications will be considered separately. Planning staff will advise as the purpose and effect of the applications and provide any other information that is relevant. The clerk will summarize any correspondence on file, and from there, the applicant can make a brief presentation if they so choose, and the public will have an opportunity to speak to the applications being considered. I respectfully ask members of the public who wish to speak to keep their comments concise and directly related to the application before the committee so that all interested parties have the opportunity to be heard. After the public forum, the committee will then deliberate on the proposed applications and consider a motion to pass, defeat, or defer the decision of the application. The minor variance applications being considered this morning are A26-01 for 180 Lavalley Way, A2603 for 212 Moore Point Road, and A2604 for 13722 Georgian Bay Shore. To the clerk, please.
Notice of each of the applications was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may have also been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Thank you. Our first minor variance application this morning is A26-01 for 180 Lavalley Way. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property has an area of 2.1 acres with a frontage of 88.4 meters onto South Bay of Georgian Bay. A detached dwelling, sleeping cabin, and 2 sheds currently occupy the lands. The property for the majority is in its natural state, with much of the development being focused in closer proximity to the waterfront, with the rear extent of the property being densely vegetated. Pockets of mature vegetation exist in various areas of the front and side yards. The neighboring properties are developed with residential and accessory uses. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the construction of a detached garage with second-story storage space, with a building height of 5.64 meters, whereas section 4.1.15A permits a maximum building height of 4.5 meters, and a setback of 20 meters to the high water mark, whereas section 4.1.15B permits a minimum setback of 40 meters to the high water mark. The purpose and intent of limiting the height of a detached garage is to assist with ensuring that the detached garage remains accessory to the principal building or use on the lot in terms of size, and to reduce the potential negative visual impacts on neighboring properties and the waterfront. The existing dwelling is larger than the proposed garage, both in terms of height and ground floor area. The proposed garage is to be rear of the dwelling, being screened by both the lake and the dwelling itself, with mature vegetation existing in the front and side yards. The purpose and intent of requiring the detached garage to be 40 meters or greater from the high water mark is to protect the visual integrity of the coastal Georgian Bay, limiting large size accessory structures visible from the water. This scenario is unique in that the high water mark travels inland on the directly neighboring property to the east, reducing the high water mark setback to 20 meters. However, maintaining an appropriate front yard setback on the subject lands. The proposed detached garage will be adequately screened from the lake, being approximately 51 meters from the high water mark, running across the majority of the property frontage onto South Bay. The view from the water in terms of activity area is not expected to be visually expanded, given the existing screening. Regarding the natural landform, no blasting or mature tree removal will be required to support the proposed detached garage. At a suitable property size of 2.1 acres, sited amongst residential properties developed in a similar manner, staff are of the opinion that the proposed application is desirable and appropriate development or use of the land. The committee can either approve or deny the variances being requested. The committee may also defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the proposed variances and are recommending approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating that building permits will be required and the dwelling does not have approved occupancy.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to speak to the committee regarding this application?
I'm Kovacs' husband. Our contractor is on the line as well.
Okay, could you give us your name and address, please, for the record?
Yeah, Variance House. Our wife's and my address is 5085 Fourth Lane, Ontario.
Thank you. And we have the applicant's agent online? And could I have the agent identify themselves, name and address, please? Okay. All right, I see a message, or Mitchell Courtney has joined us.
Yeah, just joined now. Mitchell Courtney, I'm the contractor for Josanna and Barry, and I'm here to answer any questions if needed.
And your address, please?
Is 900 Brant Waterloo, Ayr, Ontario.
Okay, thank you. And did you have any comments or anything to add to what the planner had offered in regard to this application?
Not specifically. I think the planner, I think Andrew covered it pretty well there, that while the height is in excess of what's allowed, the variance should be okay, as it's pretty shielded from everything. It's not going to be in view of the lake or blocking anybody's view. Tucked nicely into a treat area there behind the neighboring cottage even as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this application? Do we have anyone online? Okay, no one present here or online. So with that, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And Member Jarvis.
I know you missed me. I have an observation. I really don't have too much to speak with this application, but the observation that when we get told that the view from the water is whatever, and the view we were given is with snow all over the place, it's rather problematic in that we don't get a good view from what it would be from view from the canoe as we talk about on a regular basis. So that's an issue for me. Just generally, specific to this one, I don't have any issues with this application as it stands. I think it's something we've got to consider going down the road. Snow is quite impactful when you're dealing with water-based communities when it comes to view from the canoe. Anyway, that was it, just an observation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Member Matthews, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a chance to drive down the driveway. I have no worries about how it's going to be hidden. I do find it curious, and Andrew, I think you touched on it because of the way the land sort of scopes in. I always thought the front view would be the front view, but and that's not considered the side view. It's still the front where it slopes in, and it still needs the 40-meter setback there.
Through the chair, this is unique in that there's both a required front yard setback and a required setback from the high water mark. So in this case, the high water mark, even though it's on the adjacent property, the high water mark is still there. So it's not considered yards in this sense. It's considered setback to that high water mark that was measured via survey.
And just further, is 40 meters, is that just for garages or is, yeah?
Through the chair, that's correct. Yeah, under the detached garage provisions, 40 meters is required.
Thank you.
And Andrew, if I might, on that same question, is the front yard considered anywhere where there's water? Like there's two sides of that are water? Is that both front yard?
Through the chair, yeah, front yards measured uniquely per property. For waterfront parcels, the front yard would be considered the front lot line rather would be considered the shoreline.
The front lot line. So the area where you're measuring the 40-meter setback, is that the front lot line?
Through the chair, the front lot line is the shoreline frontage for the subject property. We're measuring from the high water mark, so it's not considered the front lot line or the front yard in that case. It's just the measurement from the high water mark.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, if there are no... Oh, Member Predko. Please go
Thank
ahead.
you. I don't like to be forgotten. So I guess my question is really the similar through you, Chair, actually, to the planner. My question is really along the same lines as to this 40-meter setback from the high water mark. Is that it? And maybe this is beyond the current knowledge of our planning staff, but is this because of drainage or because of the view?
Through the chair, with what we found, it's more regarding the view in terms of not having large size accessory buildings within the front yard in this case. The subject garage is much lesser than the maximum permitted, but a detached garage on this lot would be permitted to be a maximum of 112 square meter gross floor area. So it's ensuring that within that 40 meters that we don't have this large building kind of amongst the dwellings on the shoreline.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A 26-01 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 180 Lavalley Way to facilitate the construction of a detached garage as described below. One, a building height of 5.64 meters, whereas section 4.1.15 permits a maximum building height of 4.5 meters. Two, a setback of 20 meters to the high water mark, whereas section 4.1.15B permits a minimum setback of 40 meters to the high water mark. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. Two, that the proposed detached garage be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And three, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor of approval, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is minor variance application A 26-03 for 212 Moore Point Road. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property has an area of 5,345 square meters and a frontage of 74 meters on Georgian Bay. It contains a detached dwelling, a shed, sauna, 2 wood shelters, and a temporary tent. The applicant has informed staff that the temporary tent structure will be removed. The sauna and wood shelters will be relocated to achieve compliance with the zoning bylaw. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to permit the construction of a detached garage with a height of 4.85 meters, whereas a maximum height of 4.5 meters is permitted, and a ground floor area of 126.16 square meters, whereas 112 square meters is permitted. The proposed garage will contain 3 bays and is to be located in the rear yard, setback 5.1 meters from the rear lot line, and approximately 20 meters from each side lot line. It will be situated 6 meters from the existing shed on the property and 55 meters from the high water mark on Georgian Bay. The subject lands are located in eastern fox snake regulated habitat. A scoped environmental impact study by Azimuth Environmental Consulting assessed potential impacts of the proposed detached garage on the natural heritage features. With approximately 0.01 hectares of woodland removal and all works occurring more than 40 meters from Georgian Bay, the EIS concludes the project is not anticipated to result in any negative impacts, provided mitigation measures are implemented. These mitigation measures include, but are not limited to, restrict all vegetation removal to December 1st to March 14th, provide species at risk work training, install and maintain reptile safe exclusion fencing around the construction area, etc. The township's environmental consultants peer-reviewed the EIS, finding the methods, characterization, and conclusions acceptable, while recommending minor refinements which did not necessitate revisions to the study. The application is consistent with the township's strategic direction for environmental protection. Both the district and township official plans required the impact assessment. The district's official plan does not specifically address accessory buildings, instead deferring to local municipal official plans for detailed policies. Within the Moore Point Road area, including Old Range Road, Pecuniary Point, and North Shore Road, detached garages located in the rear yard are common. A site visit confirmed that the 2 residential properties to the west each contain a 3-bay detached garage located in their rear yards. The property to the east is developed with a marine landing use. The township's official plan states the character of the waterfront designation will be maintained by retaining the overall low density of built form and development while generally preserving the shoreline in a natural and undeveloped state. The building is expected to remain screened from Georgian Bay by natural vegetation. The garage will also exceed the minimum required setback from the high water mark at 55 meters compared to the required 40 meters. Staff are also of the understanding that given the location and topography of the lands, the garage will not be visible from the water body. The subject lands are zoned shoreline residential type 1, which permits a detached dwelling and accessory uses. The applicant is seeking permission for a height of 4.85 meters and a ground floor area of 126.16 square meters while exceeding minimums and complying with all other requirements. The ground floor area is less than that of the dwelling, and its visual impact on neighboring properties in the waterfront will be mitigated by increased setbacks, existing vegetation, and mature trees. The building is also set back approximately 20 meters from neighboring properties. Pictured here is the entrance of the property and the vegetation that will screen the development. Here you can see the vegetation between the proposed garage and the dwelling, as well as a photo taken in the driveway facing the rear yard. Pictured here is the proposed location for the garage. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis based on the applicable tests under the Planning Act and are recommending approval subject to conditions. The committee can approve or deny any one of the requested variances. They may defer the application to a subsequent meeting if additional information is required to come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, is there correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, indicating that building permits will be required. Confirmation of hydro services must be provided to ensure the required 5-meter setback is maintained. And one letter of support was received from Helmut Braz.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? And if so, would they come to the microphone, identify themselves with their name and address?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Victoria Hoffman, here with Flow Drawings and Design, 3 Violet Drive, Port Severn. This application is for a storage structure. Basically, they just want space for stuff around their property to put it inside. One of those photos has a picture of a very large boat. That boat sits about like on the trailer. We need the 12-foot door, which brings us to the 13-foot wall. Even with the 412 slope, it brings us over our allowed building height. And then the depth, that 27-foot boat plus the tongue trailer got us to the depth and the size that was needed. And then the bays on the either side are going to kind of be for, they have a trailer and snow removal and then a personal vehicle. Here to answer any questions. The property owner is online, but they don't have anything to add. They just wanted to be a part of this, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public present or online that wishes to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing no one present or online, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with. We're not going to. All right. I would like to, on behalf of Member Jarvis, I'd like to ask you a question. The blue structure that you see there, and I asked Ms. Hoffman, is that the structure that's remaining, and is it considered a sauna?
No, the blue structure that was pictured, that's the garden shed.
Garden
The
shed.
sauna is in the front yard, which is the problem why it needs to be.
And you mentioned that that's going to be relocated. Where in relation to where it is right now would that be relocated?
To be honest, this came up more recently, so basically that's why it became a condition of the minor variance. So we're going to work through that after this, and then we just can't get the building permits until we do. I think it'll probably just go away, to be honest, from conversations with like they'll take it down or something like that.
So the building department is requiring you to have a larger setback than what's there now?
Planning department, that you guys can speak to this more than me, but there's a front yard setback for saunas. It's not being met.
Oh, so we're talking about the sauna. I'm more referring to the blue building in the back, the garden shed staying where it is.
That structure's staying the same. Sorry, my confusion. Yeah, there's two wood shelters down by the water and there's a sauna down by the water that have to be removed. The garden shed in the backyard is staying, which is close to the garage.
Okay, and the separation between that and the new garage, is that,
I think it's like 5.5 meters.
so, and so that meets the requirement. So that puts that building right
6 meters.
right on the road, right? I could see the stakes when I was there,
Yeah,
and if you
it's got
were,
a 5 meter rear yard setback and it needs 4.
okay, all right, sounds good. If there are no further questions. You have a question?
Mr. Jarvis is.
Okay, again, on behalf of Mr. Jarvis, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to the point about the garden shed, which seems like a substantial garden shed when I had a look at it. We are still within lot coverage compliance, I take it.
Through the chair, yes.
Shaking of the head. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can they paint that blue something else?
Blue is Victoria's favorite color, so.
It actually is, but I will not be an interior designer, so it works. for me.
Okay. Very well. If there are no further questions, I will read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A26-03. 1, detached garage with a minimum building height of 4.85 meters, whereas section 4.1.15A of the zoning bylaw permits a maximum building height of 4.5 meters. And 2, a detached garage with a ground floor area of 126.16 square meters, whereas section 4.1.15D of the zoning bylaw permits a maximum ground floor area of 112 square meters and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the sauna and 2 wood shelters are removed or relocated to achieve compliance with the zoning bylaw, specifically minimum setbacks and minimum building separation requirements. 2, that the fabric tent structure in the rear yard be removed. 3, that the applicant or owner signs the township's memorandum of understanding by which the applicant acknowledges the requirements and timing of matters related to the environmental protection, specifically including the implementation of all mitigation measures contained within the scoped environmental impact study prepared by Azimuth Environmental Consulting, and the additional mitigation requirements indicated in comments 1 and 2 of the Hutchinson Environmental Sciences peer review dated February 24th of 2026. And 4, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 5, that the proposed development be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out in the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 6, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor of approval of this application, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our third minor variance application today is minor variance application number A26-04 for 13722 Georgian Bay Shore. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property has an area of 1,863 square meters and a frontage of 45.9 meters on Georgian Bay, north of Deer Island. A detached dwelling, sleeping cabin, shed, and a dock occupy the lands. There are no significant natural heritage features on or abutting the subject lands. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the expansion of the legal non-complying detached dwelling and the reconstruction of the attached deck. The expansion of the dwelling will result in an interior side yard of 3.3 meters, whereas a minimum interior side yard of 5 meters is required. And the lot coverage will increase to 12.53% or 233.6 square meters, whereas 10.08% or 187.84 square meters exists, and a maximum lot coverage of 7% or 130.46 square meters is permitted. The variance pertaining to the interior side yard is evaluated against 4 tests, as despite facilitating the expansion of a legal non-compliant building, the non-compliant side yard is a new issue. The variance pertaining to lot coverage is evaluated against 2 tests, as the legally existing development on the lands already exceeds the maximum permitted lot coverage. As shown here, expansion occurs in the rear and on the top of the existing deck footprint, both at the front and side of the dwelling. Pictured here is a view of the property from Georgian Bay and the west side of the dwelling, where the reduced side yard is proposed as a result of the screen porch addition. The lands are designated waterfront. The district's official plan states that new development should generally have a physical character similar to or compatible with existing in terms of density, lot sizes, maximum building heights, and minimum setbacks to ensure compatibility with existing development. The township's official plan states that lands are located within the township official plan, the lands are located within the Honey Harbor Coastal Waterfront Community. The goal of the community is to protect the natural heritage, preserve the recreational amenities, and maintain the character and scenic beauty. Relevant basis and principles of the community state that new residential development or expansions to existing residential development shall be limited in size in the township zoning bylaw in order to protect the character of the area and building design, which lessens the impact on the surrounding landscape, which shall be encouraged. The dwelling was originally constructed in 1959. The applicant proposes to maintain its existing location and one-story form while modestly expanding the building in a manner that minimizes disruption to the granite shoreline and existing vegetation. The side yard setback of the proposed screen porch is same as that of the current deck. The subject lands are zoned shoreline residential type 1, which permits the detached dwelling and accessory uses thereto. The dwelling is subject to Section 411E, expansions to legally existing shoreline dwellings. Despite the permitted expansion, no new issues of noncompliance can be created. In this case, the applicant is proposing a noncompliant side yard of 3.3 meters, whereas the dwelling currently has a side yard of 5.7 meters. Note, this section does not account for constraints related to lot size or topography. Overall, Section 411E is intended to allow modest expansions to legally existing shoreline cottages while maintaining the low-density character of waterfront communities and ensuring privacy and adequate separation between neighboring properties. By prohibiting further reductions to non-compliant side or front yards, the intent is to prevent additional impacts and uphold the established character and compatibility of the shoreline development. The proposed addition, which reduces the side yard setback by 2.4 meters, is to be constructed almost entirely on the footprint of the existing deck. The new screen porch has a modest floor area of 12.78 square meters and will function in a similar manner to the deck it replaces. Because it is contained largely within an already established building footprint and represents a small-scale expansion that is consistent with the dwelling's existing form, the proposal aligns with the intent of Section 411E. The tests pertaining to lot coverage are desirability for appropriate development of the property and whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. Only the proposed expansion may be evaluated for undue adverse impacts. The intent and purpose of the official plan is not a relevant consideration when applying these tests. It is planning staff's opinion that the expansion, which further increases the lot coverage, is considered desirable for the appropriate development of the subject property and will not result in any undue adverse impacts on surrounding properties or the broader neighborhood. The neighboring property to the west has a comparable lot coverage of 11%, having recently received approval for a minor variance to expand its legal non-complying dwelling and deck. The neighboring property to the east has a similar lot area above the high water mark and appears to have a lot coverage of roughly 13% based on available GeoHub information. This pattern of lot coverage, generally between 11 and 13%, is common among properties within this channel, particularly those with similar sized or smaller lots. It appears the majority of lots in the channel contain one-story dwellings with attached decks spanning the front of the structure. The proposal is therefore compatible with the established development pattern. The deck is included in lot coverage only because the dwelling was raised to achieve compliance with and exceed the required minimum opening elevation of 178.3 for flood protection purposes. The proposed expansion is located almost entirely on the footprint of the existing deck, limiting new to site disturbance. The dwelling remains modest in scale with a floor area of 1,006 square feet and will continue to be 1 story in height. The property and its shoreline do not contain sensitive natural heritage features. The Committee of Adjustment can either approve the variance pertaining to the interior side yard or deny with reasons. For the committee to deny the variance pertaining to lot coverage, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility, evolution, and expansion. The committee can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Planning staff are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, has there been correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, indicating that building permits will be required along with a review of the special separation and the septic system. One letter was received from Thomas Bain, President of the Eastern Georgia Bay Protective Society, expressing opposition to the proposed 79% increase in lot coverage due to the long-standing concerns about overdevelopment, heavy boat traffic, declining water levels, and the resulting impacts on local water quality. And 4 letters of support were received from Frank Newell, Morgan Williams, and Carolyn Sue West, John and Julie Underhill, and Steve Simmons and Suzanne Dawson.
Thank you. Is the applicant present or their agent, and do they wish to address the committee on this application?
Hello. Do I have to state my name again? Victoria Hoffman, Flow Drawings, 3 Violet Drive, Fort Severn. I met with these property owners last summer. They wanted to look into what their possibilities would be for rebuilding this cottage. It's past the point of repairing and they want to look at rebuilding it. We had walked through what the acquired rights would be through 411. They wanted to keep the cottage modest. They wanted to try to use the location because of the rocks and topography and the existing bunkie. But they also wanted to build something that was going to suit their needs. The existing cottage is 831 square feet with a 432 square foot deck. The new cottage is 1,000 square feet with a 317 square foot deck. The cottage size is increasing by 174.5 square feet, but the deck is going down by 114. So net, it's only about a 60.5 square foot difference, increase. The 411 we do comply with, but from a massing perspective, we didn't want to make it anything crazy. The existing walls are a 7-foot wall. The new cottage is proposed with a 7-foot wall at the back of the slope. The existing cottage has a 112 slope roof. This is going to be a 1 1/4 12 slope roof. In our existing versus proposed elevations, the main reason why the mass changes is because we're needing that opening elevation for the flood levels. Similarly with the lot coverage too, we are increasing. I know that one letter said 79%, but from existing to proposed, it's actually only a 24%. If you guys have any questions about anything in that letter, I do have notes on that, but I don't need to get into it unless you want me to. But from the deck coming up and the whole floor of the building coming up to meet those opening elevations is largely why the lot coverage is increasing. From the side setback perspective, it was intentionally designed so that, yes, we are putting a porch on the deck now, but the existing deck setback is 3.3, and we're just asking to match that with the new porch, which counts as a dwelling setback. So the 3.3 meter side setback, and we do have a letter of support from that neighbor as well. Neighbors on both sides actually, and people across the way that they would be looking at this cottage. Again, I have other notes about that objection letter if we need to chat about it, but the property owners are online, same thing, they're just here to listen in. I'm here to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public, either present or online, that wishes to address this committee? I've seen none online or present. I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And Member Jarvis.
Thank you, through the chair. I won't hide the fact that I'm quite concerned with this application. I did send a note off to the planner with a number of questions and comments, and they've been replied to, but I may address them as well. But I have a question for starters to Ms. Hoffman. How much higher is the new building going to be versus what it is now? And approximately would be fine.
I think it's about 3.65 of a meter, 0.7, yeah, 3/4 of a meter, I think. We're going, the existing opening elevation is 178.45.
What's the current opening elevation then?
Pardon?
What's the current opening elevation?
178.45. And then proposed, what does it have to be? 178.9?
Because opening elevation has to be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Should be less, it should be less
It
than
should be
178.
less. I think the surveyor got that for me. Oh.
Through the chair, I believe you're asking for the height increase difference.
Yes, thank you.
So I believe the height was increasing by 0.98 meters.
Okay, so just short of a meter then. This is okay, height. Okay, so my observation, and that made to the planner, is that there is no survey made available to us in the planning documents that were presented. And the high water mark, therefore, is not noted anywhere in any documentation we've got. The high water mark, in my mind, is critical on the shoreline of the Georgian Bay.
We had a new survey done.
Through the chair, that is my bad. They did provide a survey. I did not include it in the drawing package that was attached to the report, but the site plan was created based on the survey and the high water mark plotted on the site plan.
Okay, so I think your comments and your reply to my email is to that effect. So that brings me to the point that my observations based on the documentation I had are that the current footings for that cottage, based on water levels in 2020, would be in the lake. And I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that. I think the high water mark you'll find runs underneath that deck. And
I think we have
you
a
can correct me if I'm wrong. I
0.5.
don't have a copy of the survey, so I don't know.
Through the chair, I think it's important to note that the regulatory flood elevation is different from the high water mark, and that the regulatory flood elevation.
I'm concerned about
being-
high water mark and the footings for that deck, particularly. That's what yes.
Through the chair, to Councillor Jarvis. For a couple of things, from our actual elevations here, the corner might specifically be on the existing one. I'm not sure on the survey if it shows that it is located behind the 177.4. So as long as what's approved is what they apply for, which it has to be as per the zoning certificate, we will have a surveyor confirm. Oh, sorry, Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official. Anyways. Yeah, here. So we'll confirm with an OLS that they are in the location that they're supposed to be.
Which still could conceivably put them within the.
No,
No.
they're, according to our planning department, it's located behind the 177.4.
Okay, not having that document is crucial here. If I look at the photos included with that plan, the application, it is abundantly evident to me that if you look at the shoreline to the right, the portion where the moss no longer exists, that's where the high water mark is. And now that's strictly an observation. I'm very, very concerned that what we're doing is putting something basically on the water. We're adding to a difficult situation by allowing this addition to go ahead. In other words, the deck is, if it's not in the water in a high water event, then it's darn close. And now we're adding on to that, and I just don't like the idea at all of doing it that way. Above and beyond that, it would have been nice to get out and have a look for ourselves so we could really see what was going on. And we don't have that opportunity. Again, one of my bugbears is trying to get out in the wintertime to look at these locations, which we can't do. Road access is good. When it's boat access, it's really, really difficult. So that's another issue I have, but I'm very, very concerned. I think it's critical to have that survey and know. I have a hard time believing that the footings for that deck as it currently stands will not be, are beyond the high water mark, the 177. But if that's the case, okay, fine, I have to believe you. But so that's, I have some real concerns here. I'd be seeking deferral on this, but I think it should be going for an OPA. If he'd come to me and asked me what I thought should be done, I would say, take it down and add on to the cabin. But that's a significant difference opinion on it. So as I said, I'm very concerned about it. And maybe if we sought a deferral so we could have a better handle on the high water mark, among other things, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I would just extending Member Jarvis's question. Microphone. Thank you, Member Jarvis. Kaylee, perhaps you could answer this. The 177 is a datum that just says this is what was recorded as the highest water level that we had in Georgian Bay?
I'll let our Director of Planning answer that.
To the chair and to the committee, know that the 177.4 is not the highest ever recorded water level. It's the flood limit. So 177 is the average high water mark in Georgian Bay.
Okay, because I believe during the most recent high water that we had, we were well over 177.4. So the opening is 178. The minimum opening height is 178.
I don't recall specifically what it is, but the raising of the cottage would mitigate the situation. It would raise the cottage and reduce the risk.
And so the current opening height for the cottage, do you have that figure available? I'm sorry? Just under 1 meter. Above 177. Oh, 178. Okay. All right. Does that help at all? Member Jarvis said the current height is well above what the high water mark is.
Again, without a survey in hand, I wouldn't mind having the specific data. What is the current opening height for this building?
Through the chair, according to the survey, the finished floor elevation is 178.45 currently.
Currently. And what is required?
178.3.
So it's just above.
Yes,
And we're planning on putting it even higher.
that is correct.
5.9. Okay, thank you. It's still, if you had a surge.
You got a surge.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Huffman, you had a question?
I have a comment.
Okay.
When we had met with the property owners, originally we were talking about basically just replacing what they already have. Their intent either way was to build a cottage in that location. What we're here asking you for is to better the height situation, which increases our lot coverage and that side setback. For them, it wasn't really an option to build off that cottage. We also get into change of use and it does become a complicated building perspective on my side anyways, and they like their existing cottage where it is. It's more so the lot coverage, bettering the condition that's there and building a better structure to address these things that don't work for them anymore.
I would suspect that the owner of the property would know exactly how high the water came at the last high water. And I see Member Predko with his hand up. Do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair. I just wanted to note that page 34 of the report includes the site plan that has the high water mark on it. And it does run through underneath the deck, but again, I don't know that we at this moment have the details to know what the footings are for that deck. But I did want to ask the planner or to the building official, if this deck is against the water, I think we know that wood supports rot when they're that close to the water. Is there an opportunity to change the building material for those the piers that deck would sit on from being wood to a metal material or something else that would weather better in the long term, and also probably provide more protection if there was more high water.
Through the chair to Councillor Predko, all of this conversation related around building and water is all regulated through the Ontario Building Code.
Okay.
And currently, this structure is not located in the water. It's not being built in the water. There may be at some point water that may eventually make its way to the pier or not. From what I currently understand, it's going down again, but it is also being constructed on rock, which means it's going to be drilled and pinned into the rock. And I'm assuming it'll be a concrete pier or a pier of some sort. But again, that will be addressed at the building permit stage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any follow-up questions for Member Rivet?
Thank you. Through you, I just have a question. Is this just an expansion, or is the entire building coming down and going to be rebuilt? Is my question. Rebuilt. So it's not an expansion, it's a brand new building. Correct, yes. Right, so if it's a brand new building, so if it was a brand new building coming to us, what would the application look like? Because this isn't an expansion, right? The whole building's coming down, right? So as it's no longer an expansion, I've got concerns with the location. I've got concerns with the massing.
I think this might be a planner question, but because we're working on the same footprint, 411E applies,
But
even though it's a complete rebuild.
Okay. So if that's the case, it's, in my opinion, based on my training, the lessons that I went through, my minor variance school, this is not minor. It's not minor because it's too close. It's not minor because the square footage is larger, and it's not minor because it's encroaching. It's also right on the shore. I don't think it's an expansion when it's a brand new build. I think it requires an official plan amendment because I don't believe it's minor.
But the three things that you just listed aren't what we're seeking relief for.
But the setback, right? It doesn't, it doesn't meet the side yard setback. Correct? And it's, the square footage is larger. So.
But we're not seeking relief for the square foot, like from a GFA perspective, it meets that.
Yeah, but the coverage, right? The lot coverage is greater, and it can't meet the setback. Right? So those, in my opinion, are not minor considering the expansion so close. And also I think it's premature without the, I mean, the design is lovely, but I think it's premature without the survey. I think.
But my client spent thousands of dollars to get you guys a survey. It was done in the
But we
summer.
don't have it. We don't have the survey.
Through the chair, I can pull the survey up on the screen if you'd like. Want to do that?
From my opinion, it's not minor. I think it needs an official plan.
I would ask, is that going to satisfy anybody if they see it on the screen, or do you need to have it in your package?
Lisa Chair, I want to voice an apology to Victoria and to planning. I totally missed this when I was going through I only went through it 3 times and I totally missed the high water mark is noted in the survey. I totally apologize for that. But it does show the high water mark is definitely underneath that deck. So we're dealing with a property, and right, we don't know what water levels are going to do. I would suggest that with snowpack this, and I can speculate just like anybody else can, And with the snowpack this winter, we'll probably see some higher levels than we've had in a little while, but not unlikely to be 177.4. But when we hit that high water mark in 2020, it was above 177.4. That deck was in the lake, not the surface of the deck, the pilings for that deck. I know of other cottages where they had, and one cottage had a dining room floor that was underwater. So I know by right, they are allowed to build on the same footprint as the original. I'm correct on that? Okay, so I understand that. I'm very, very concerned that consideration is not being made for the fact that they're taking something that is possibly not viable from the standpoint of the high water mark, and they're just adding to it. I agree, it can be done. Based on all the building information we have, it's driving me nuts that this can be done. And that's, anyway,
But
again, my
perhaps it could
apology
be-
stands for not having seen the high water mark. I missed it totally, sorry.
Okay, thank you. And I see a hand up from Member Schmidt. Please go ahead.
Thank you through your chair. How old approximately is this current cottage that's sitting? Roughly, approximately.
Through the chair, records indicate it was constructed in 1959.
So offering some perspective, if something's been there since 1959 at a lower water level opening than we are proposing on this application, it would seem that the net benefit is an improvement. I would assume today's building code would be superior to what it was built to in 1950, which would be more resilient to potential higher waters. The owners of this property probably wouldn't be making this level of investment on this property if they were concerned they were going to be flooded out. The neighbors beside and directly across are saying they support this application, which are the people that have the second, third, and fourth highest impact of this application. First being the person who's writing the check to pay for it. This is minor in nature. It is a new build, but you can't always put lipstick on an old pig. And no disrespect, but you get to you have effective life of a dwelling, and you have what its lifespan is going to be. This has come to its end. It's going back where it is. That's the discussion that we currently have on the table. And I believe that this is something this should be a go. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Member Predko with your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I just wanted to get clarification from either the building department or the planning department with regards to once an approval is given for a minor variance, it's up to the planning department to issue the building permit, and that if the resident rebuilds versus makes a modification, that's part of the building permit process. And I only ask because I have on occasion for applications that we've approved and I've passed and watched the construction phase, I've seen them tear down the old property and build it up even though they were looking for an addition. And I had asked the contractor, how could you do that? And the reply was because structurally they couldn't just add the addition, they had to basically start again. And could I ask either whether it's the planner or the chief building official to confirm, once we approve a minor variance, what actions does the owner have the right to take?
Through the chair, once the appeal period lapses and there's no appeals, they may apply for their zoning certificate. The drawings they submit for the zoning certificate have to align with those submitted for the minor variance. Once they receive the zoning certificate, then they submit that with their building permit application for review under the building code.
Okay. And I believe Ms. Nicholson mentioned when the planning approval is complete and it goes to the building department, they research the height and come up with a decision based on Ontario Building Code as to where that should be. And if it needs to be a little higher, then that's what you would do to the applicant?
To you, Chair, So what happens is when they make a building permit application, part of that application includes the approved zoning certificate. I review the zoning certificate with the plans that have been reviewed and approved through one of our inspectors. And if they don't match, it gets denied and they need a revision to that zoning certificate. So it means they always go back to planning. So I think to address Councillor Predko's question, because I think we kind of missed part of it, was that they have a minor variance for an addition. When they get to doing the construction of that, they find that the rest of the cottage is rotten and unsafe. So on top of the addition, they may need to rebuild the cottage because it's not safe to continue adding on to that existing structure. They would have to go back to planning and receive planning approval prior to us accepting and approving the revision to that permit.
Okay, thank you for that
Okay.
clarification.
Thank you for the clarification.
Are there any further questions or comments? And I would ask, is there a hand up, Member Matthews? And what would be your question?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
It's all great about hearing that we're at this level and that level. I wasn't quite born and raised on Georgian Bay, but I've been there long enough to see that high water mark is just a mark on paper, really. And I would have grave concerns about, personally anyways, approving a change that water is going to be actually underneath the building before we even get started. And it reminds me of something up in our area as well, that, but that's another factor. I think of one on Honey Harbor Channel, which is roughly across from Nautilus, where they got permission to build, close in their front deck and everything. It was very low to the water. They're now getting flooded. So I personally just cannot put my stamp of approval on something that my gut says could be a problem, and I don't want to be held liable for that.
Just
Ms.
one.
Nicholson, I know you're
Oh,
just dying to jump
I
in.
am.
So.
Just one quick comment on that. Not, I know which building you're talking about. And that was a long time ago. And I would almost guarantee that that's well below the 177 for not at it or close to it or above it. But that permit was issued a long time ago. Probably wouldn't have got past today.
I guess I go back to also if, you know, aren't we supposed to have a 20-meter setback from the high water mark? And we're building a new building, so why don't the new rules apply? It just doesn't sit right with me, is all I can say. Whether a deferral so we could get further questions, I would love to be able to look at a survey instead of it just popping up on the screen.
I have I had a hand up from Ms. Hoffman prior to that, so please go ahead. Your question.
I just wanted to quickly mention, like, I'm here as an architectural designer. I am a building code qualified individual. With every application I submit to the building department, I make a commitment to the building department to make sure to work with them to make sure that the proper materials and everything are applied to these situations. Collectively, that's the decision. We're all taking the liability. It's like, we will deal with those. My intent is always to deal with those with the building department, is guess what I'm trying to say here. I don't want to take responsibility for a structure that I think, like, to Mr. Predko's point, that a 6x6 is going to walk out. That would never be the intent, or get washed out, sorry. That would never be the intent. I'm here on behalf of my agents, but I'm here as the building code qualified designer. I just need to get these approvals in place so that we can then address that. I'm not asking my client, we've already invested in that $4,500 survey. I'm not asking for my customers, we're not going to design the structure before we have your guys' approval. Otherwise it's another $4 or $5 grand on behalf of my customers that you guys could then say no. So that is the way we work,
Okay.
But I do commit to making sure building code is met and we're all happy.
I appreciate that perspective, and I'm not sure that we were following that as we went through this question and answer period. So I think what the message that Ms. Hoffman is giving us is that the final decision on the height and the design and the support of that structure is not part of this meeting or part of this decision. So I think we should move forward with that in mind. And Director Whitliff, you had a question or comment for the committee?
Thank you, through the chair. Just to put some context on this. I think the discussion and the considerations and the debate we're hearing is absolutely valid if there was no building in this location already. Certainly, if someone was proposing to put a cottage in this spot for the first time, all these considerations would have to come into play. But the fact is that there are inextinguishable acquired rights here. It is a legal non-conforming building. Should the owner wish to replace it in entirety, knock the whole thing down and replace it like for like, or even raise it while replacing it like for like, this planning department or this committee would have nothing to say about that. They have that indistinguishable right. Okay. So I think what's before the committee is the difference between what they have and what they can do as of right versus what they're proposing. The additional coverage and the deck to the one side. And considering the 4 tests for the deck and the 2 tests for the additional coverage is the difference between what they have and what they're allowed to do, and the difference between what they're proposing so egregious that the committee must deny it. And I think you have to look at that, because from staff standpoint, as you heard in the planning report, it does meet the 4 tests for the deck. It does meet the 2 tests for the additional coverage, and planning staff are satisfied that it's minor. The test to deny it on the basis that there's some adverse impact would really have to be demonstrated, and I'm not seeing that. What I am seeing is a proponent that wishes to improve upon the situation by raising the finished floor elevation. So again, would we put a cottage here to begin with for the first time if there was nothing there now? Not likely. But recognizing that they have the right to rebuild what they have, let's look at the difference between what their rights are and what they're proposing. And in staff's opinion, this is a very minor enlargement and expansion over what's existing.
Thank you very much for that. And these committee meetings are always a learning experience. And I think this has been a good example here of what is in our purview and what is not. And appreciate the comments both from the agents and from our planning department. And I think we're all pretty clear now as to what is a part of the resolution that we're going to vote on and what isn't. So, and before we go any further, I would like to maybe ask if Member Jarvis, you had a further comment?
Of course, I have to get the last word in here. And I appreciate the comments made by planning, by Victoria. I understand that by right, what can and should be allowed. I am in total conflict, though, I won't even say morally, with the fact that somebody's building something on the water. We're trying to avoid that. And yeah, if it was a new build, one thing, and it's not a new build, by right, they can build on what's there. Drives me crazy, and that's where I'm having real trouble with this. Notwithstanding comments made by everybody, Tony, comments, totally legitimate. I understand that. But what I know and what we've seen in the years that we've been on the bay are significant. I mean, I had a cottage washed off an island in front of our place, and they built again. I guess we've got to review this when we do our OP review. I don't know how we can consider it. Yeah, by rights. And that's all provincially designated. So that's my issue with this. And I just want everybody to understand why I feel this way. Thanks.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate your comments. I would have to say, based on the input we've got, that is outside the scope of what we're talking about here today. So with that in mind, do you have another question? Please go ahead.
Well, I have a concern because I share the moral conflict that Mr. Jarvis does. And I think there may be 1 or 2 other people sitting on the committee here who maybe share the same. And I don't think the intent would be to deny it, but that is a possibility the way I'm reading the CREP. And I wonder if a deferral, maybe to clear up my own mind or have a closer look at this at the survey. And I by no means questioning your ability, Ms. Hoffman, the planning department is I just can't wrestle my mind around saying, yeah, go ahead and build right over the water. It just goes against everything that we've been doing I've been sitting on the committee for 12 years or something like that. I never agreed to anything like that. So it's just a suggestion if you feel worthy of
I
surveying.
hear where you and Member Jarvis are coming from. But I think from the information that we have received from all parties who addressed this is that the height and the approval to construct the cottage is not on question here. It's whether or not we're going to meet the setbacks and allow the exceptions to the zoning bylaw that have been asked for. We need to rely on our building department to make sure that all of the things that you mentioned are taken into consideration when they go to approve the building permit. And I think that message came across fairly clear. Please go ahead, Member Jarvis. But first of all, before you, is this another apology, or are you going to agree with?
No more apologies, no agreements.
But you see where we're coming? We're defining the difference between the responsibility of planning and the Committee of Adjustment for approval of some variances.
Very clear.
I don't think we're equipped to make an opinion on the building code and how the place is going to be constructed.
Which brings me to my point. We dealing with 4 tests or 2 tests on this?
Back to the planner, there was 2 situations there that we are addressing, and the answer to that is both.
Through the chair, the side yard setback for the porch is subject to the 4 tests, whereas the lot coverage is subject to the 2 tests.
Okay, so one of the 4 tests, so I'm probably mixing things up here, but I know you'll correct me. Is the proposal desirable, correct? That would be under one of the 4 tests?
Through the chair, that is one of the 4 tests for the side yard setback, yes.
So so from that standpoint, again, I realize I'm overstepping because we're dealing with 2 tests, not 4, but if under desirable, is it in the public interest? And what I'm getting down to here is we're looking at a potential liability issue, not for us, but for the homeowner, if nobody else. If we have a similar high water event and something gets washed out of that cottage, you're in the insurance business. What happens with the insurance?
No, let's
anyway,
try and,
yeah, that was going to be my question. So we're dealing with 2 tests with regards to the cottage in general, correct? Except for the side yard.
Member Jarvis, I believe those questions have been answered by several people, and
I rest my case.
I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think that's within the purview of the Committee of Adjustment or what is being asked for during this meeting. So I would. Do you have a question?
Just a comment.
Please go ahead.
Through the chair, if the committee is considering a motion to defer, staff would request that the reasons would have to be outlined in the motion. And at this time, we haven't received clear direction from the committee regarding the basis for the deferral. So to be able to accurately capture everything in the minutes, we would need those items outlined clearly. At this time, we don't have those. So if the committee does choose to go that route, you would have to outline the exact reasons for the deferral and the direction you want staff to take and the applicant to take.
We've had the mention of deferral by Member Jarvis and Member Matthews. I'm not aware of any others. So if in fact we want to have a deferral, would it be appropriate then to ask without taking a vote those that are interested in deferral? Okay, boy. All right, let's start with that. Then we'll start with Member Matthews, if you wanted to identify your reason for deferral.
I have 2 main concerns. One, the inability to do a site visit, because I think this is quite critical, being so close to the water. And I appreciate everybody's comments and professional opinion, but I still have to wrestle my mind around this to be able to cast a vote. And I would like the ability to see the survey more than just up on the screen for 3 minutes at today's meeting. I would like to be able to have it in hand and process it.
Very good. I appreciate that. Member Jarvis, do you have some reasons that you would like to offer in terms of considering a deferral?
I have lots of reasons, but they're all wrong. So other than getting out for a site visit, which I think is rather important, and I would love to be able to go out and have a look at this place, but that would be spring. And I don't know if a deferral can be done for that reason alone or not, but that would be my reasoning for a deferral at this time.
I would just ask both of you. There are basically two things that are being asked for in this application. And the site, the setback and the lot coverage. And do you feel that the site visit is necessary to come to a decision on those two items?
I guess.
And you
I
agree with
would
that?
agree. I'll just note that the cottage owner's hand's been up for a while.
Then we will ask Mr. Member Schmidt, you had a question, please go ahead. I'm asking you if you have a question to go ahead.
Thank you, through you,
Okay.
Chair Hill. We have a pretty fantastic photo of the view from the canoe. There's it's already an impactful cottage on the water. There's nobody's arguing that it is close to the water. Some could argue it is a classic old school Georgian Bay cottage. That's where a lot of them were built. If you look at the neighboring properties along that shoreline, I spent a few minutes measuring some of the setbacks. Yes, this one is very close, but there's a whole lot of them in that immediate area that are equally as close to the shoreline as this one is. Height is our concern. The highest impact of height on that cottage is on their addition, their current secondary, whatever that is above, right? They're the ones that are going to get impacted by this place coming up, and they're bringing it up to get it to a better solution than currently in front of us. If everybody wants a deferral, we'll do a deferral as long as the outcome of a delay of somebody's rights is appropriately being addressed, right? Is the delay going to help us fix something? There's nowhere else to move this cottage on the property, right? The depth is there. There's another dwelling. Do we want to endorse blasting to get it back a couple of more feet? I don't know where there's a better result of what's proposed than what's in front of us now, is the lens that I'm seeing.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I have Darcy Campbell with a hand up. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you. I think you have your microphone on, so yeah.
On?
All right, let's try again. Go ahead, Ms. Campbell.
Hi, can you hear me? 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 Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, you're logged in twice. I wonder if that's what's causing this echo. So
How about now?
All right, we're going to take one of your logins out, and maybe that'll solve the problem.
Oh, sorry.
All right, there we go. All right, much better.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I didn't think this application would cause so much conversation. First of all, thank you for listening to or reviewing our application. We've owned the cottage since 2019. Our neighbors that have supported our application, Mr. Frank Newell was the previous owner. He now lives next to us. And Morgan Williams, who lives across the channel from us, it was his father that built the cottage. So they're very familiar with the history of the cottage. That cottage has never been underwater since it was built in 1955. Okay, so when we first bought it, there was a high water level, probably the highest one that you're referring to, Mr. Jarvis. When we bought the cottage, we fell in love with it when we sat on that deck and bought it that very day because of the way, the grandfathered feature of the cottage being right on the water. We knew at some point we would have to have some renovations because the cottage was built in the 50s. We are at that point now where we need to make some renovations. So I'm going to put this point in front of you now while you go, if you are deferring this application. If you deny us the build, would we be allowed to renovate on the exact same current footprint that it is now? And if not, then you are denying us the right to improve our cottage because it needs to be improved. I'm not going to get into what needs to be done. You can just imagine the cottage was built in the 50s. So I'm not sure. What we're asking is not building forward towards the water any further than it's already there. In fact, where the corner is, where that deck will be, is going to go back a bit. And we're just screening in the porch of the deck that's already there. So I guess that's all I have to say about that. You're welcome to come and have a visit in the spring and have a look. The pictures that are there from the canoe, as I think it was Mr. Schmidt, I think you had, the pictures are there. You can see. Also, you know, when we did have Victoria up, we walked around and even wondered if we could just move the whole cottage back. In doing so, there's rock at the back of the cottage and you would have to blast. So we're just simply building on the current footprint and yeah, so that's all I have to say. And thank you very much for listening to me. And if you have any questions, I'd be willing to answer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as my secretary treasurer duties, I thought I would just point out that a deferred decision of a minor variance can be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So, yeah, I just want to point that out, and just for both the committee and the applicants.
Several questions, comments. I think there was some flip back with the survey. Was the survey, I don't have the full report in front of me. Was the survey included? So you guys have the survey? You do? Yes. And I submitted a few dozen photos of summertime pictures of this property with the rock in the background. You guys see me so often every month because, and I'm at a great advantage because I know what you guys want to see. And I work with these guys. I'm across the street. When I met with Darcy on site and her husband, we looked at the rock. I work with the building department. I know that that rock is never going to be allowed to be moved, even if I could take it to council. It was never going to get approved. They're very limited. To Darcy's point, and I'm hoping she's still online, she has an acquired right. Darcy, you're always allowed to rebuild what you have. That's not in question. My commitment to the building department as a building code identified designer would be to address that with them. That kind of finishes that. You guys also last month approved their neighbor's minor variance for an increase in lot coverage, a reduction in the front yard setback, and a bigger deck in a required yard. They're friends. We have a letter of support from them. I'm just mentioning this because I'm going to have a conversation with my client after this, and I just think it's important to kind of reiterate these points.
One of the points list was the fact that the owner of the property is familiar with the builder and with previous owner.
Yep.
And in the experience of all those people, there's never been a situation where the cottage has been flooded. So we were speculating about the possibility of flooding. We have no data, but I think the response from the previous owner and the current one that there's not been flooding takes precedent over that.
Okay.
So I see your finger right on that button there. I think at this point, at least in my opinion, we've had some discussion about a deferral. And just so that we don't get confused on this, if we are contemplating, I think some people are and some people are not, we're going to take two votes. The first one will be whether or not we want a deferral. If we do, then that's, if we vote in favor of that, then the application is deferred. If we do not approve a deferral, then we go to the second phase, which is either approving or denying the application. So are we all clear on that? So just so that we don't end up with a question mark at the end. And so I will ask our Secretary Treasurer to read the resolution for deferral. And again, keep in mind that either we are going to defer or not, and then we will have a second vote as to approval.
Just to provide, no, we are not, to member Rivet, just to clarify, we are voting on a deferral. If this motion passes, the application will be deferred. If the motion does not pass, we will move on to the motion to approve the application. Two separate motions.
Yes. And that will avoid confusion in the future.
Okay, so we're adding an additional motion. I just wanted to say that I'm not in support of a deferral. When I read the case law and I do the searches, as Member Jarvis mentioned, it talks about how acquired rights are definitely a thorn in the side of municipal planners, because they infer the right to the property owner. And unfortunately, that's something that we have to struggle with. There's no liability on the municipality that I can see, even though it's close to the watermark. So I'm not in favor of deferral.
Okay. All right, then what we will do is we will read the resolution for deferral and we can take a vote from there. Please proceed.
Be it resolved that the Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment defers its decision on minor variance application A26-04 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for the lands known municipally as 13722 Georgian Bay Shore to facilitate the expansion of a legally existing shoreline dwelling. The committee provides the following reasons for the deferral: to permit members of the committee the opportunity to complete a site visit to better understand the context of the subject property, and two, to allow additional time for the committee to review the submitted survey and supporting materials in greater detail prior to making a decision.
Very well. You've heard the proposal. I would ask that all those who are in, and it is moved by Member Jarvis, seconded by Member Matthews. And I would ask all those who are in favor of deferral of this application, please indicate by raising your hand. So we have two, and so the motion is not carried. And we have a second resolution, which I will read. It is moved by Member Hazelton, seconded by Member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A26-04. 1, an expansion to a legally existing shoreline dwelling have an interior side yards of 3.3 meters, whereas section 4.11E and 6.3 table 6.2 column 2 require a minimum interior side yard setback of 5 meters, and 2, a lot coverage of 12.53%, whereas 10.08% exists, and section 411E permits a maximum lot coverage of 7%. And subject to the following conditions. 1, that an Ontario land surveyor professional engineer or certified engineering technologist verify by pinning the foundation wall and verifying in writing or by way of survey real estate report prior to the pouring of the footing, and if no footing, the foundation, that the detached dwelling is no closer than 0.5 meters to the front lot line at its nearest point and is constructed in the same footprint per the site plan, and verifies that the minimum opening elevation for the dwelling and additions thereto is 178.3 meters above CGD or greater, in accordance with the plans included with minor variance application A 26-04. And 2, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the application that is being considered. And 3, that the proposed development is substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 4, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor of approving the application, please indicate by raising your hand. We have 5. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you, everyone. Took a long time, but we
I've seen Victoria with a red face.
yeah. Yeah.
Let's leave the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Get to do
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for their excuse me. We are still in the meeting. Do you want to apologize for that? I would like to thank everybody for their participation in today's meeting. I have a resolution moved by Member Matthews and seconded by Member Jarvis. Yes, you guys are probably to be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment does now adjourn at 11:32 a.m. until April 17, 2026 at 10 o'clock or at the call of the chair. All those in favor, please indicate by sticking your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried.